All right, what was the question again?
How did you find community or a dancing rabbit?
How did I find community at Dancing Rabbit? Um, you actually know, so I'll tell them. I had taken a permaculture class when I was still living in Los Angeles. Um, and I became very curious about natural building mostly. Um, and so I took a course at Emerald Earth Sanctuary in Northern California. And after I did a course on how to build the straw bales and use earth and plaster and that sort of stuff, I was like, oh, I want to keep doing this. I want to keep building this way with straw bales and mud and sand and the straw and all that. So I said, hey, where can I do more of this? And the folks there, including Brent at Emerald Earth, said, you need to go to Dancing Rabbit. Turns out that there's a ton of natural buildings here and a lot of knowledge here around using local and salvaged materials. So I came for a visitor program, a 3-week visitor session in the fall, and met Rae, and it turned into one of the best decisions I ever made in my life.
So let's maybe start this with a little bit of background and introduction. So my name is Rae, and this is Aaron, and we live at Dancing Rabbit Ecovillage. It's located in Northeast Missouri. It's an intentional community of about 50 people living sustainably and simply. And we've lived here for 3.5 years, and we have built our own home from timber framing, straw bales, earthen plaster. We have a brick floor with radiant tubes in it, and there's still some construction yet to be done. And we are just stoked living at Dancing Rabbit. It's such a great place to like build our communication skills and learn how to live in community with people and get along and make decisions and govern ourselves. So we're here at Dancing Rabbit, super happy with where we live and our life here. And we just wanted to share it with the world in a way that helps to answer your questions. So I found Dancing Rabbit because I went to a Conscious Life Expo, picked up a magazine, took it home, and was looking through it and looking at websites from the magazine. And I stumbled across IC.org. It's intentionalcommunities.org, and there's a directory where you can search for community. And Dancing Rabbit Eco Village wasn't even on my list of places to go to. I spent 6 months just like, as soon as I realized community existed, I spent the next half a year just selling my possessions and quitting all my jobs and looking through the intentional communities directory to find a place to live. And I went to the first place and met somebody who said, hey, Dancing Rabbit should be really high on your list of places to visit. So I was able to visit Dancing Rabbit next and ended up staying because of the people that were already here. I saw somebody's documentary. Amanda Crichton is a friend who lived here at the time and made a documentary called Within Reach.
Good movie.
And it's a trip that her and her partner took riding bicycles around the United States to visit 150 different communities over 1 year by bicycle. So I was able to watch that video and see all these different communities and think, hey, she chose to live here. We're a lot alike. And so I just chose to stay at Dancing Rabbit and it worked out great. Let's see some more questions.
Actually, I think we have somebody joining us here. And I want to make it known, please, that if you have any questions, you can interject. We've got some that we have gotten from people ahead of time, but we want your live questions asked right below this or right somewhere on the edge of the screen. You'll see a chat box somewhere around us. And ask your question in the chat box, and we'll see it on the screen here, and we'll be able to answer whatever you want to know. We're talking about a lot of stuff. We're talking mostly about the village and our low carbon living practices that we have here, sustainable living, But we also are open to talking about climate change adaptation, grief around climate change, gardening, permaculture practices, any of that stuff. We're super excited to talk about. But otherwise, we're just going to go through a short list of some questions here, and then keep going on the next one.
Let's see. What do you want to answer? Like, what do you do for work or income?
Sure. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I would say, well, I think it's worth saying even before we even get into any more details that
Yeah.
we are just two people here. We do not represent the views of any of the other rabbits. We are not spokespeople. We are merely motivated and excited to share how we live and what we've learned and to promote the village. Even though this is through an official channel at Dancing Rabbit, we are not representing all the people that live here. So that must be said clearly from the beginning.
I would say it like we're going to come up with our answers to these questions, and just keep in mind that there's a diverse village of 60-ish people here, and they would have 60 different unique answers to these questions. So I appreciate that about Dancing Rabbit, that people can have different experiences here. There's the openness for that whole spectrum of diversity. So people can have economic diversity and choose to live really simply and not spend very much money. We, for example, have high-tech stuff like our devices and all this camera stuff. And we probably use more electricity than most people and have more electronic gadgets and gizmos. So there's some people that can live off grid and super hardcore, and there's space here for the whole range of that spectrum. So come and live with us. What do you do for work?
That's a good question. I do a lot of different things for work. I'm one of the type of people who goes away from time to time and earns money outside the village. I had a career working in media before coming to the village, or find out I really wanted to live like this and specifically move to Dancing Rabbit. So from time to time, I am lucky enough to go away and do short jobs on a freelance basis. And then I come back and live here super affordably. So it means that the amount of money that I'm able to earn when I go away for a month or two at a time really allows me to stay here for many months after that because it's so affordable here. So it's worth mentioning that. But I also do have a couple other jobs. I do freelance video work here with Rae. She and I take clients to produce crowdfunding videos, to do promotional videos. We do kind of mini documentary shoots whenever we feel like it. And we get paid from time to time for a lot of that work. And it's really great because it's all values aligned work, doing cool stuff and documenting things that we really believe in. So we're both lucky enough to be able to do a job that captures and shares the things that we're doing here and make a little bit of money doing it. Yeah, and yourself?
So I get to make an income at Dancing Rabbit in like 17 different ways. Sometimes I'm working with Aaron to edit videos for the nonprofit, and we get paid to produce videos. And sometimes I am doing voiceover work for commercial stuff or audiobook narration. And sometimes I'm making an income from sewing things, like I'm a seamstress and I make thick insulated curtains for people's homes and sew patches on hats at the mercantile and make curtains in the mercantile. And I'm the innkeeper at the Milkweed Mercantile. We're transitioning it into a worker-owned cooperative. So that's one way that we make an income here, is being part of a small business. And I make small things like toothpaste, mouthwash, deodorant, bug repellent, sunscreen, bread, yogurt, jam, pickled products, and then I sell some of those products and just to my neighbors and stuff, sort of more for a trade and just a gift economy for those type of things. And then I make I sort of spend time instead of money. So I grow a lot of my own food and I spend a lot of time preserving that food for the winter. So instead of spending a lot of money throughout my year, I'm saving so much money because I'm spending time growing food and preserving it for the winter. And I do the same thing with building a house. I save a ton of billions of, okay, not billions.
Billions.
I save a
Billions.
ton of monies by not hiring somebody else to build my house, but learning from my neighbors and from my partner how to do it myself.
So it's interesting. I think Ray brings up a good point that because I don't just have the one job doing video production. I have also done work to do, I've been hired to expand the local power grid and also do some of the billing work for our local power co-op that we've created here on farm. I also do kind of random odd jobs for people. I've been hired as a photographer. Um, I built some small things for some folks, most of it just for trade. But the point is that we're both able to make we're able to become economically self-reliant because we have a diversity of different income streams from different places. We don't rely necessarily on one single thing, um, which I think is really important about being adaptable too in what is a very unpredictable economic condition that we're seeing in this country and internationally. Climate change and just all of the crises that are converging in the world are creating a really unstable world. I mean, I think that there are lots of families suffering in this country because they're relying on a single job or multiple jobs that aren't paying enough and having a hard time meeting their expenses. So one of the ways that we're adapting to that reality economically is by reducing our expenses and increasing the number of different places that we make money. So
Mhm.
we're kind of trying to lead by example, I think, through what can and is becoming more a difficult situation for people in developed countries like this one, by living flexibly.
So I also do a lot of things that aren't necessarily to make an income. For example, living at Dancing Rabbit Ecovillage, we both volunteer a lot. We have committees around the village that everybody is a part of a handful of different committees. Basically, whatever skills you possess and you could be an attribute to that group, you sort of choose to work with this group of people on this topic. And that could range from path and road maintenance to land use planning to like building code citing, uh, to the outreach committee, the communications team. So there's lots of ways in which we spend our time here that is volunteer work towards moving along the mission of this village that's not necessarily dollars income for the work that we do. So that leads me on to one of our other questions. Somebody was asking, like, what is Dancing Rabbit or what makes it a village? And so I would kind of connect that question to this answer in that Dancing Rabbit is both a nonprofit and a village. The village is about 50 people living here full time and living in a demonstration site. So the nonprofit has a mission and an outreach goal to grow this village to be the size of a small town, perhaps 500 to 1,000 people. And the nonprofit focuses on education as part of their mission also. So they bring student researchers and student groups to Dancing Rabbit and visitors for like not retention but recruitment.
Recruitment.
So we bring visitors and students here and we all live in this demonstration site. And so just our daily life in living here is part is partly activism. It's how we're able to support the nonprofit's mission of spreading sustainable methods as education.
Totally. It takes, a lot of people to do all the things that we're trying to create, um, that we're trying to replace in regular versions of civilization, we try to police ourselves. We try to organize our own infrastructure and pay for it with the members who live here. We try to resolve our own conflicts. We try to get together and talk about ways to improve our economy. We talk about ways of, how to grow food and how to share resources. So it's, we do a lot to create a replacement for what has become a pretty unsustainable form of civilization. Some people really love it. Some people find it really difficult, and that's what's so interesting about this place is that it's an experiment, and I like living here because every week, every day is pretty different.
Mm-hmm.
This fly is trying to get me. Hey, we want your questions. Please ask questions in the chat box somewhere down there. I'm not sure.
And I'm curious, how's our microphone going? If you can hear us well, or if you can't, please say so in the chat box below. Thanks.
Totally.
Let's see. Another question would be, are you allowed to have visitors there?
No, the gate closes at 5, and we have to go into our cages. No, it's just like a regular neighborhood anywhere else. It is all on private land, but yeah, we're allowed to have friends and family come by at any time.
We're allowed to leave.
That's right.
Let's see. What's your favorite thing about daily living there?
Here, my favorite thing, I guess for me, it's not having to commute anywhere for a
Ooh,
job.
I
Oh my gosh. We both lived in LA before moving here. Whoo! We gained 3 hours minimum every day to be more productive or not productive, just hanging out, talking to people, quite honestly, and not stressing out, shouting at other drivers. So that's been pretty cool. That's one of my favorite parts, honestly. How about you?
One of my favorite parts has to be what happened 2 nights ago. We had Grass-Fed Mule, this great bluesgrass band that came and gave a concert for 4 hours. We have this like multi-purpose room. It's like a dance studio, a yoga studio, and a concert hall and a classroom. We use it for all of those things. And it's really nice to have this third space that's not like your living situation or your kitchen space, but it's this other building where we can go and congregate and get together to do things. And so having a concert in there or watching movies together in there is one of my favorite things.
Snap. I've been doing that. I've been snapping a lot. The same type. Snapping in this culture, maybe if you were a part of maybe the Occupy movement, I think that has adopted that behavior. That means I agree with you, and it's part of our vocabulary here. It's nonverbal communication that means I agree with you. It's pretty handy.
So asking what's my favorite thing leads me to the next. They didn't really ask this question, but I can think of it now that I'm sneezing. One thing that's not my favorite about living in Northeast Missouri is all of the pollen. The allergies that people have to go through, it's pretty rough.
It's true. I suffered a lot the first year I moved here, and then I got a little more used to it, and now I take like Claritin and stuff, and it helps out a lot. But we're out here in the middle of the weeds, so you're gonna suffer some weeds, some pollens every once in a while. But overall, I would say it's pretty much worth it because I had the same problem even when I was living in California. So for me, it's not that much different.
Okay. I have a question from somebody of like, how do you create community with your neighbors?
How do you create community with your neighbors, Rae?
I would say that on like a overarching level, the village tries to design the way that we design our habitat to create this like
We're hamsters.
we
We have one of those balls and we go around in the ball. It's great.
We put all our cages really close together and then put a picnic table in between.
We do that actually.
Basically, like put your homes close together and create this like outdoor third courtyard area where people can congregate outside and create this space where it's comfortable to take a minute to ask your neighbor how they're doing and really listen and have a conversation in the middle of the afternoon. Another way is that my toilet room and my shower room and my kitchen, they're all not located here in my house because my house is tiny. And I don't want to have to pay for all the plumbing and the expensive bathroom and stuff. So I built my house our house really inexpensive by not having to include those features. And so that means that by walking down the path for half a minute to get to the kitchen, I'm creating that opportunity to like walk past my neighbor and get to communicate with them and build community and build interactions of the more times I get to see them and create that connection.
Totally. Like casual social interactions are one way to create community.
Oh, the fire tonight.
Yeah, there's a fire going on. It's the 4th of July, so we're going to go and see something burn, not explode.
Hey, it's a holiday. I totally forget those things here.
Yeah. And so some of the other ways that you create community, I think that it is about having regular intentional time for people to come together, and it can be for business and it can also be for pleasure. And so this place has plenty of opportunities for us to come together. Some would argue too many times for us to come together to both work and interact with each other through meals, through business interactions, through volunteer work. And so we're seeing frequently the same group of people that live here pretty frequently. So we kind of know what people are up to. We have also email. We have a pretty active email list that we use here to organize a lot of things that go on and to help us make announcements and that sort of thing. So that's another way that we help create community. We also share vehicles. And so by sharing rides with people, because we only have 4 vehicles, passenger vehicles, between the 60 plus of us that live here, it means that we're often sharing rides because there really is only a couple places to go in this area. A couple largish towns that have what we need. So we share rides a lot, and that creates community. So it's it's a number of different things. Hey, we got a question. Someone says, hi, I'm new to following Dancing Rabbit Ecovillage and just joined the live video. I'm wondering if you guys have tiny houses or something similar. Yes, no person. We do. We have tons of small homes. We're actually in a tiny house right now. We'll actually, if you look on this channel, livingasimplelife.com, we have here on YouTube, we've got another video, 2 more videos up that kind of show our house a little bit so you can get an idea. We're going to be making more. And some of the other videos you should watch on the Dancing Rabbit YouTube channel. We've actually shot a lot of the videos about and featuring the tiny homes that are built here. So I think the answer is yes. We have one tiny house on wheels that Bear built. There's a video about that you're welcome to check out on the Dancing Rabbit Ecovillage YouTube channel. Eventually this talk we're having right now hopefully will be on Dancing Rabbit as well. Do you want to say anything about the tiny homes here?
Sure. Another video that you'll find on Dancing Rabbit's YouTube page would be with Hassan, and So all of the people at Dancing Rabbit sort of live on what's been compared to the square footage per person of the average American back in the 1950s. So that's about how much space each individual here is living in, between like 200 to 500 square feet per person.
But there's no
It's
limit
pretty
on.
small.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. But there's no limit on that. So there's several people who live in much larger homes that average over 1,000 square feet per person. But on average, we find that it's much more affordable to build a tiny house, as you know. Nope, no person. It's also cheaper to heat and cool. It's a lot easier to heat and cool when you don't have as much space. And it also means you don't accumulate a lot of stuff. Like you got this great big, 2,000 square foot house. It means you got to fill it up with a bunch of stuff. So, we talk about and encourage a lot of non-consumerism here. Trying to focus on, instead of buying new things, buying used things or sharing things with our neighbors as much as we can. Sometimes it's not practical, and that's what makes this village a real cool transition for a lot of people that are wanting to experiment with that, because we have a whole range of different living solutions. There's no particular way for people that are required to live any particular way. It's just that we have a set of covenants that people agree to when they move here, but beyond that, they also have a lot of freedom in how they interpret that and what their life actually looks like. We don't have a lot of hard limits on what people can do, but I will tell you one of the big ones that I know was difficult for me when I first moved here, coming from LA, was a car. You can't have a car. That's got to be probably one of the most strict sort of covenants that we live by here, which for some people is difficult, but for me, it really hasn't been at all. Do you want to talk about that at all?
Sure. I feel like the cars and the showers have always been available anytime I've needed them. I've never had to like wait in line for the shower or the toilet, or find that there's not a car available when I wanted to use it. So it sounded shocking at first when I heard the ecological covenants of Dancing Rabbit, but in actuality of living here, I haven't found it complicated or hard. And I would say that one of my favorite things, you mentioned how we share a lot of things and we don't like accumulate all this stuff. One of the favorite things that I have that we share with our neighbor is like, our neighbor Kyle uses our internet and we use his like string trimmer weed whacker tool.
Yeah, we make trades for a lot of stuff. Hey, so we've got another question. Jeff Eikenberry, hi Jeff, says, my cousin is there visiting and she loves it. Wow, who's your cousin, Jeff?
Is it Christina and Kelly?
We want to know.
They're visiting Brooke.
Oh, okay, great. Maybe that's
or maybe it could be like Mike Way has friends visiting right now, the kids, and Matt Stannard and his kids.
Maybe. I don't know. Talk to us in the chat box here. But the question is from Jeff is, I was wondering what your biggest relational challenges are and how you deal with them as a community. And Jeff says Melody is the person.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Melody is doing she's doing a work exchange opportunity with a sub-community of people that live here. They're called the Critter Collective. And Melanie's having a great time. She's throwing this bonfire tonight, and she works super hard, and she seems to be enjoying her time here immensely.
Melody's doing good.
Yeah.
And then, but the question though, right, is relational challenges, and do we have them, and how do we handle them? I guess.
Totally. I think that relational challenges come up, I would say, in committees when we're working with people and maybe we're totally different types of people, or we clash on like our values. Maybe I hold things being affordable as a very high priority, and the other person in my committee might not, or think that it's fine for something to be expensive. So that could be a point of conflict. Or perhaps in like a big group meeting when we all come together, perhaps people that are just, I honestly have learned to assume people's best intentions are always in the good of the whole. But sometimes in a full group meeting, it might be challenging to get everybody on the same page, or to get somebody to just stop questioning this action that the whole group wants or something. So that
Yeah.
could be some ways in which personalities collide
Yeah.
when living in community.
Totally. And this community makes decisions by consensus, which means 100% democracy, 100% quorum, which is, it can be really challenging. You know, you basically, everybody has to be in agreement before something gets ratified or before something gets accepted as a way forward, which can definitely have its challenges. And I think relationally, I would say the weird thing about living here, or any intentional community, because I haven't visited some others, and I know this is common for other communities, is the idea that you're working and hanging out with, and you're next to the same group of people a lot. And so it's about not necessarily letting a bad working relationship, for example, fester. And that's really challenging, you know, having to resolve those things because you see each other a lot.
Yeah. Because it could affect more than just your work atmosphere. It affects your kitchen scene. Maybe you all eat together and you don't want that tension to go home with you, so you have to try and like resolve it at work or something. I would respond to what you were saying about what consensus means. You were saying it means that we need a 100% whole group agreement. And I would change that a little bit off of the word agreement and say that, like, sometimes consensus means that certain individuals have to look at their objection to the process and say, if the whole group wants this, am I really committed to my objection, or could I possibly take one for the team and say, okay, I'm going to stop arguing my point because it looks like the momentum of the team wants to go this way. So I think that consensus is more about, like, sometimes conceding to the group more so than we all have to agree. I don't have to change your mind.
Totally. Right. You just kind of go with the flow, hopefully in the spirit of making progress.
Yeah.
So we've got another question. Basically, so Jeff says that Melody loves us and we love her. So thanks, Jeff, for chiming in. That is Melody. Fallert, V. Fallert wants to know, where do you get your daily supplies, stores, internet, etc.? Well, we are lucky enough, while Ray's off camera, I'll answer my part of that. We have a local store that's run by Mennonites that's about like a little less than a mile away. It's a little store with like a little deli section and a freezer section. It's like a kind of a regular cool little grocery store.
We don't really buy anything there.
I know we don't buy a lot there, but it's definitely good in a pinch. But they've got a lot of conventional stuff, a very little bit of organic stuff, and it's good for some great items that we can't get last minute anywhere else. But generally, she's right. I think a lot of our food ends up coming from a lot of different sources, mostly our neighbors, and also there is a larger store about an hour away from us that's got an organic section that a lot of people end up buying at. And then we also take delivery of, there's like a service that does a shipment of fresh produce that we can get in bulk, and grains and beans and that sort of thing, dried fruit. So we rely on that for a lot of staple items that aren't in season. What about the internet? Where do we get it? Where do we get our
I would have answered that question really differently.
Well, it depends on what we're getting from the store, right?
But that's the thing, we don't get very much stuff from the store.
Right.
So spring through fall, we try to grow a lot of our own food, and a lot of our neighbors grow a lot of food and have extra and sell it to us, and we try and preserve a lot of food for the winter. and we try and be sort of like locavores and just find the wild edibles that are edible and eat those. And then beyond that, sure, we order dry bulk goods as a whole community um, through this little shipping container grocery store that we've built here. And some kitchens place orders together through this ordering system, and some kitchens don't. And some kitchens use the little Mennonite store down the road, and some kitchens use the big Hy-Vee in the nearby town, the grocery store.
Yeah, and so I think, yeah, there's a lot of different types of living. I mean, I think this illustrates sort of the differences in living styles here. Some people will rely on, only local stuff, and a lot of, some people rely on, only stuff that they make. Some people will buy packaged goods. It's sort of, we're open to people living in lots of different ways and interpreting sustainable living in whatever way makes them more comfortable or makes them comfortable enough to live here, because we're about exploring lots of different solutions.
And acknowledging that it's a progression, that people move here and they begin to take steps towards being more and more sustainable.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't have to happen immediately when you move here. Some people eat plenty of processed packaged foods in the first year or something. Some people, some food kitchens are omnivore, vegan, vegetarian. Uh, some people have a preference for paleo or whatnot, and they just find a way to make it work for them in the food kitchen that they eat with. But I would say that food kitchens are amazing. Being able to eat in a cooperative with at least like 4 to 6 or 8 other people is pretty ideal. That means I only have to cook every like 4 to 8 days. When I was first lived here, there was 14 people in my food kitchen, and that means I only had to cook once every 2 weeks. I made big, grand meals and baked loaves of bread and enjoyed my cooking so much more when it didn't have to happen 3 times a day.
Yeah, it's true.
Are there any more questions out there?
Not on here. Maybe you want to go to one of the other questions, and unless somebody, well, go ahead and text us, message us the questions that you have. Otherwise, maybe we'll just do one more here, and then we'll cut it short to just whet your appetite for more conversations like this.
How do you see living this way as making a difference in the world?
Yeah, that's a good question. We just had Zach Rubin. He is working on his master's degree in sociology. Has actually used Dancing Rabbit Ecovillage for his master's thesis, and he actually just did a presentation. You can actually see that, a recording of that we shot, videoed. Try not to say shoot. Videoed, and is on the Dancing Rabbit Ecovillage YouTube channel. You can look for it there. It's one of the most recent ones. And he actually talks very specifically about how Dancing Rabbit is a form of activism, because on the scale of things that you can do to live differently and to empower your own life, right? You can do things like you can have a strike where you basically just stop working, right, and basically stop the machines from running. All the way up to, like, in terms of activism, the scale of activism, you can, destroy machines and all sorts of, you can do acts of violence to stop the oppressive system under which you're living. Dancing Rabbit is somewhere in that scale, kind of on the higher end, because what we're doing here is actually replacing an unhealthy form of civilization. I think it's safe to say, don't you think, that most people would agree with that? That we are creating an alternative to a system of exploitation, predatory capitalism, to a world that prices materialism over defending habitat for animals and plants and humans in poorer countries. and that's really backwards. So we are here doing what we can, what we see, to create a life that's sustainable and provides justice for other humans, for other animals, and for plant life that can't necessarily defend itself, and try to diminish our impact negatively on those other life forms.
I would say that living in intentional community is a form of activism because I am voting with my dollars. When I lived in Los Angeles or when I visited New York, every time I stepped out of my door, I had to spend money. And so by not spending that money and supporting that system, I am showing them that I'm not supporting that lifestyle. Um, by choosing to support community, I'm supporting the process of bringing people into the change that's happening and helping them to transition through the change to come out on the other side able to um, to be more flexible so that um, as climate change happens, I believe that humans are going to need to have tribes and rely on their network of people and learn how to get along with each other and live close
Totally.
to the land together. And so um, instead of being angry and fighting against something, I just look at this as creating an alternative.
Boom. Yeah, well done. Agreed. Do you want to? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Do you want to keep going to that? Because we do have another question.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. Jeff wants to know, how do kids, young families fit in? Does everybody help out?
It's so beautiful seeing children in community. The children are involved with every aspect of what not just their parents, but all the adults around them. When little kids come and hang out with me, they're asking me why, just like they ask in the wider culture to their parents, except I'm giving them real answers like, well, I'm applying this plaster to the wall with a trowel because it works better than using my hand. I'm doing this because I'm building my house. Why would you put mud on the floor? Because it's going to dry and harden. And so basically, the kids are involved in every aspect of what we're doing all day long, and they feel valued, and they feel like, oh, I'm getting the hang of this, I'm learning this, and now I can do this and I can be helpful to you. Because I really think that children want to be helpful to their family, their nuclear family. um Children seem very happy and very healthy in the way that they process their emotions here, and the way that they help each other communicate and talk about their problems. You'll see kids facilitating conflict with other kids and working it out themselves, and I rarely ever see kids running off to get an adult to fix their problems. It's amazing. And then I see kids being homeschooled not just by their parents, but by the whole village. I was gifted a fox as roadkill, and I got to see a couple kids walking by and offer if they wanted to look at it. And then they brought two other kids, and then these five kids were asking me questions about, well, why does the inside of the leg look like that? And oh wow, look at when I move it like this, the toes move, and all of these bones are connected. And so they're getting this school of life and this really deep experience of education through the activities that happen all day, like on a farm, living the real life. And of course, our kids do homeschooling and public schooling, all the options are there. Um, and families are more than welcome here. They're encouraged, they're supported by all of the members that live here. We're always trying to like support families because it's a little easier to come here if you're just one person, or actually it's easier to come here if you're two people. It's probably a little bit harder for single people and a little bit harder for families. And so as a community, we try and support families into their transition here by like having preschool, which is like one morning out of every week where all the kids get to go to this donation based class and play together, and the moms get to like have 3 hours of computer time to just do their own thing. So there's ways in which the community supports families, but there's also play dates where some kids will go and play with other kids for the afternoon, and so you can exchange that with other parents, and it's this like free form of childcare. So
I really find it interesting how the kids end up um, having a really interesting communication skills. They develop, it seems, from a really young age here, if they spend a lot of time in community, communicating like adults from a very young age, especially because they're wandering around and from a younger age than they normally would be allowed to wander around because it's pretty safe. It's a pedestrian level village. There's no real dangerous animals or snakes or anything really bad. Walking around barefooted, interacting with adults. So they end up communicating much sooner with a bigger vocabulary, which I think is pretty cool. And so, you know, the old cliche, it takes a village to raise a child. It's pretty cool to see the children that are raised by a village.
yeah, we're committed to not having children so that we can help to raise the children in the village.
Yeah.
And so that we can send them home when we're done playing with them.
Exactly. So we're still able to like babysit, and like for example, we just were eating for about 6 months with a family with 3 little girls, and we had a great time. We ate together and actually got really close to that family before, for a lot of different reasons, they ended up having to move away. But it was so cool because it felt like we were part babysitters, we were part aunt and uncle, and teachers, and it was just really fun because we get to sit down and read books with them. So I felt like we formed a really solid relationship with them, and we're not the only ones. Like everybody in the village had that sort of some level of relationship like we did with them. So it's like amazing to have this whole, you know, village of aunts and uncles that you can just wander around and who are looking after them too. I mean, if they're on the street, you know, they're playing on a path and they start to shout because they fell and hurt themselves, there's someone that's going to run and hear, you know the scream and go and take care of them. So it's pretty neat.
And then all those eyes watching, it's not just for the children, even for us adults. Like, I think that we're all behaving on our best behavior here because we live so close to each other. I can see, or as I walk down the path, I know somebody's always looking out some window somewhere. And so I think people are on their best behavior.
Yeah.
But that's a good environment and energy to live in.
We have a responsibility to each other because we do rely on each other for a lot. So it feels like a good thing.
Well, this was us, and this was our live Q&A with YouTube, and we're so happy that we got to share this time with you.
Yeah, we want to do this pretty regularly, I think. We want to incorporate even other rabbits, we like to call ourselves, and do this on a regular basis. So if you enjoyed this, please comment on the video below. We'd love any feedback. If you have any questions you'd like to load in, we'll make sure to look through it and try to credit you when we get back on to the next live one. But yeah, look out for a post about the next time we do this on social media. Thanks for watching. It was really fun to answer questions. Nice talking to you.
Dancing Rabbit! Okay, bye-bye. Good job, Aaron. Okay. let's go party.